Exclamation, everybody, and welcome back to Cube Ramblings. For me, it is Saturday night, October the 10th, 2015. We're pushing October 11th right now as I record this. Hope everybody has had an excellent week. I don't know how long this particular episode is going to be because there hasn't been a whole lot in the terms of news going on, and B, I feel like I'm in the process of fighting some cold off here. It has not affected, thankfully, my voice just yet, but I do feel it's sort of, affecting the back of my throat and other things here. So hopefully everything will be good for this episode and will be great, and I will be able to fight this off. I feel like I'm in the process of fighting this off. I'm like right on the cusp of actually sweating, and it's not really that hot in the room. So that usually tells me that I'm about ready to kick whatever this thing is before it kicks in. So hopefully everything will go well there, and I'll be able to continue recording and not have an illness to fight off at the same time. Tis the season for that, as the seasons change here, and I am due for my illness this year. Yes, that's right. I usually only get sick like once a year, and it tends to be right around the change in seasons. But anyway, this is a podcasty thing about video games, not about health problems. Although it could occasionally be about health problems, who knows? Like I said, not a whole lot going on, but I do want to talk about a few of the things that are going on. I just last night actually finished up recording the rest of Deus Ex Invisible War. You will see the final episode of that actually going up after this in the 2:30 slot. I started out trying to remember why I liked the game, because everybody else seems to hate it. And I wanted to see if time had colored my opinion of it. And it turns out that no, actually I still really enjoy the game, even though I realized towards the end that I didn't actually finish it the first time around that I played it. I have now finished it fully, and yeah, it was actually, the story was meh, but the rest of the game I actually really enjoyed. Even its little idiosyncrasies, and the fact that towards the end of the game you are pretty much starved for ammo and things like that. But it was I still very much enjoyed it, and I do have a bit of a long-winded thought process on it while I manually scroll through the credits in the game in the upcoming episode, the finale episode. So I won't go too much into it, but just to say, my opinion of it hasn't really changed that much from when I still got as much enjoyment out of it as I did back in the day, honestly. So, and I think I clocked about 13 to 14 hours of actual footage. 12 hours of edited footage, but about 13 to 14, I'd say, of actual, gameplay that I did, maybe 15. So it's certainly a shorter one when you think of, say, the original Deus Ex. I think the original Deus Ex was actually around 15 hours as well, if I remember correctly, maybe even a little bit less than that. But Human Revolution was more like 20 to 40 hours, I think. Actually, I think it was more like 30 to 40 hours, if I remember correctly. So you can see the progression of RPG, length coming into it. Still very much, I can't wait for Mankind Divided coming out. I think they're still targeting February for that of 2016, so I can't wait for that to come out. I really want that to be a good thing. And I've heard there was some footage going around, a little bit of gameplay. Was it gameplay? I guess it was, yeah, kind of. There was a little bit of that going around that I saw. I don't have any links to it, unfortunately. And so far, it sounds like, the early people who have gotten early looks and previews of it have said some good things. That's even better than Human Revolution was. So I am psyched. I am certainly psyched on that. And since we're on the subject, there is a video that I do have a link to. It's out on Destructoid. The 15th anniversary of Deus Ex, I believe, came and went last week, or even possibly the week before. I don't remember. And Eidos released an animated video where they sort of bring up a little bit up to speed on the background of all the games. But I think the more interesting thing about it is that it's all animated, and you get to see all the animated characters. Denton, and then the Alex Denton, and then from the second one, and then Adam Jensen from Human Revolution, and it mostly focuses on Human Revolution, but it does show you some of the drawings of Paul and JC and all that stuff from the original, and so on and so forth. And the second one just gets a very, very brief very, very brief glimpse of it. It was pretty cool little 15th anniversary thing. I didn't even realize, honestly, that they were coming up on the 15th anniversary stuff. So my timing apparently was very impeccable as far as playing the older Deus Ex game. Although I played the second one, which I don't think is at 15 years. I think it's 15 years from the very first one. So I don't remember when the second one came out. I think it was it maybe 3 years after the first? I can't remember, honestly, because if it's 15 years, and that is 2000 for Deus Ex, and I think the other one came out in 2003, maybe. I'm not sure, not entirely sure, but still cool things all around, and good timing on my part. And before we get too much further into other news, we do have, since I am, obviously playing Cube World in the background of this, we do have some Cube World news. There's been some activity in the otherwise lack of activity that we've had so far. Wale has been uploading several songs related to the game. He has a little SoundCloud thing there, and prior to this week, prior to about 6 days ago, he had only one song on there, which was the Explorers song, which was sounds like something you would get as you're traveling around the world, possibly. But then within the last 6 days, he's uploaded several more. They're all pretty good. They all have about the same, what would I say, the same theme underlying them, I suppose. So that's probably a good thing for a game, but I wouldn't necessarily call them inspired per se. I mean, the Cube World Explorers one is kind of cool. That was the older one that was there. But the Druids of Mana is the next one that he released about 6 days ago, 5 days ago, whatever it is. And then In the Village, which sounds like more of a villagey theme, which not entirely a fan of that theme. I think it's a little too, I don't know, a little too bland personally, but I mean, not being a musician, I can't really critique music too much, because I don't really spend that much brain cells trying to figure it out, and I'm not really a musician myself, so any kind of music that sounds like something halfway decent to me is akin to magic. So I mean, all the tracks that he's put up here are fantastic in their own rights. I just don't know that they don't necessarily make me stand up and go, yeah, I'd like to hear that on loop. You know what I mean? That said, when it's mixed in with the other sounds from the game, the fighting and all the battle sounds, then it probably wouldn't be that bad. In many ways, it sort of reminds me of the songs from Minecraft, right? The C418 songs, the songs that C14 made, I should say. They fit in certain situations until they don't. The good example is sort of when you first start up the world and you get your initial overture that's playing. At that point, you're in a nice lush green world, and everything's, pretty and awesome and all that stuff. So the song fits that, but then you might also get another themed song very similar to that when you're in the Nether, and it doesn't really fit, or when you're in the midst of battle and it's very laid back and kind of nonchalant about things. And I kind of feel like the tracks that have been put up now are kind of like that, where they sound like good general purpose tracks, but would need to hear what sort of the battle, like when you're in the midst of a battle, it probably wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. And I don't know, they all seem like variations on the same underlying theme, which could be good and could be bad. Not entirely sure on that. Like I said, not a music critic or any real critic for that matter. But he's released Druids of Mana is one of the tracks. The other track is In the Village, On the Beach, and The Unholy Pact, and also just yesterday, Cult of Doom. And I've been listening to little bits and pieces of them here and there. I'll leave you guys a link to the SoundCloud for Wale, and you can go listen to all those themes and make your own judgment call on them. But also we got a tweet from Wale, which actually tweeted out the link to the music, saying that he's working on the music. So we've had some slivers of life. I mean, I know things have been going on in the background all the time. It's just it's nice to get a little update from time to time and figure out what's going on. Maybe I don't want to get my hopes up. I don't want to get anybody else's hopes up, but maybe we'll have some sort of Christmas present in the form of an update, perhaps. Who knows? From what I understand, it is still a passion project and not the thing that is paying the bills. So it's when you have that going on, much like YouTube for me is more of a I guess a passion project than anything else. It's more of a hobby than anything else. Other things tend to take precedence when they need to, particularly when it comes to putting food on the table and all those things. So hopefully we'll see something before the end of the year, maybe, possibly. Who knows? I would imagine if he's releasing a bunch of music now, that might mean that he's gotten to a point where he maybe is in testing phases now and trying to test all the changes that he's made to this point before releasing them to the world, that kind of thing. Who knows? I suspect that, though, even with this eventual update, will probably still be in alpha. There's rumors that maybe he would go into beta, but I don't know if that would be the case. I would imagine he'll stay in an alpha phase and just being very, very particular and cautious about how the game feels and plays and acts under various conditions. But I have to say, I mean, I very much enjoy the game. I created a whole podcast around just talking about random stuff just so that I could continue playing the game outside of a Let's Play format. And when an eventual update comes, I'm just going to continue what we're doing. I don't know if I'll need to create a new world or if I can continue to use the existing world. Probably create a new one at some point anyway. But I don't really have any material changes that I would want to make. I don't think I would pick up on a Let's Play again after all this time. I think I would just continue to play the game as I feel like it, and just it'll just have the new mechanics in it, hopefully. Whenever that occurs. Of course, I'm still planning very much ahead here, and nothing has actually happened yet. So keeping my fingers crossed and my ear to the ground, and hopefully things will be happening sooner rather than later. And maybe next week I can come back to you and say, hey, here's the brand new release has happened. Maybe. Who knows? I certainly don't know. So in more update news, the Star Citizen Con, I believe, is in the works, in the process. It is happening as we speak, or as I speak right now. And I'm starting to see some news trickling out of it, news that I actually care about, namely Squadron 42. So this is about the time I need to bring everybody up to speed with what's going on with Star Citizen. Essentially, there's two parts to Star Citizen, two major phases. I mean, there's modules and stuff that they talk about, but there's two major things about it that I can point out. One is Squadron 42, which is supposed to be the single player experience, very similar to Wing Commander, that foundation. And then there's the Star Citizen portion of it, which is all of that, all of Squadron 42 and all the lore and everything surrounding that, and put into a persistent MMO world. When Star Citizen was first announced, it was always, I believe, if I remember correctly, it was always part of the plan that there was going to be a single player Squadron 42 and a multiplayer. I don't think, I can't remember, it's been years since it started, but when I first jumped into it, I'm pretty sure I remember it saying they were going to try for both, but the MMO portion of it was going to be a stretch goal, which they eventually hit and broke and have gone well beyond the original scope. And that the original scope was mostly Squadron 42 with that sort of added on, social module of Star Citizen. And then further down the line, the various goals they set up was, go beyond just having a social hub, have a persistent universe and have job boards and have various ships and other things of that nature. So when I originally got in on it, and I've put in total $160 into Star Citizen. The first $100 I put in was when they first launched their campaign. They launched it off their website. They didn't even have a Kickstarter at the time. Their website was in dire straits because it got a ton of interest. And so for the first couple of days, it was just broken. Like you couldn't pledge in the right kind of ways. They had to actually open up a PayPal account, and people who wanted to pledge would have to pledge through the PayPal account, and then they would eventually reconcile all that stuff. And what happened was they opened that up, and then that was open for a couple days, the PayPal stuff, and then they got their website backbone together, and you were able to then patronize them. I was trying to come up with an adjective there, and I went blank. You could then back them, support them from their website again, and then on top of that, they opened a Kickstarter after that, and people could then go through Kickstarter at the time. And I didn't have a Kickstarter account at the time, so I had just done it on their website, and that was that. Well, what happened was I did that initial $100 donation because that was to get the freelancer, because I love the freelancer. I love freelancer game. So I wanted the freelancer package that they had, which was the ship and all that stuff. Did that, but PayPal is a weird one. PayPal, I have changed my email address in PayPal, but it refuses to acknowledge the fact that it has changed. Like it'll send email to my new email address, but whenever I pledge for something or whenever I buy something, it sends my original email from when I originally signed up with PayPal, which is a totally different service. I like instead of Gmail, it was going to Yahoo or whatever. So what happens is, I pay through PayPal, and then I registered on their website with my normal email account at the time. And that didn't match with the one that they saw on their end through the API, because eBay and PayPal for some reason just will not, even though I've set a new primary email, it's like, no, we're going to keep sending this other one that you originally signed up on. So I tried to contact them, they had this whole, Cloud Imperium. The words, they're not coming to my brain very quickly now. Cloud Imperium, they had this whole thing on the site where it's like, okay, let's try to marry up all the pledges that we got while our site was down, and they had a spreadsheet and all that stuff, and it's like, give us the email address of the thing, and then we'll try to match it up. And I submitted my stuff, but never heard anything back, and it never showed up. That $100 never showed up in my account. So I was like, oh, whatever. I gave them $100. It's there. I know I did it. Whatever. So I then, once they got their website squared away, I then contributed another $60 just to get the bare bones, whatever I think it's the Aurora or whatever the low, whatever the poor man's starship is in the game. That's pretty much what I got. So that's why I've actually contributed $160, but 100 of that doesn't actually count because, internet. Damn you, internet. I deal with you every single day. So that is my long and sordid story. But getting back to the topic on hand, I am far more interested in the Squadron 42 stuff than the MMO stuff. The MMO stuff doesn't really faze me. I could take it or leave it. Actually, probably leave it, but whatever. I just wanted another Wing Commander because I love Wing Commander so much, and so Squadron 42 was the thing that was really piquing my interest. And I will leave you a link directly to the Robert Space Industries website, where they have released a video on Squadron 42 that gives you a taste of probably the opening cinematic, I would imagine, as well as the cast of voice actors that are going to lend their voices there. The opening cinematic, it's about like 4 minutes, and I'm assuming this is an opening cinematic because it just feels like that, because it's sort of introducing you a little bit to the Vandal Swarm, and well, it's really just informing you of the current situation and how, they've been fighting the Vandal for 200 years, and now it's all out war. They've lost a few colonies, that kind of thing. It's very reminiscent of the opening to Wing Commander 4, The Price of Freedom. In that opening, and there's going to be slight spoilers, but I mean, it's the opening of the game, for crying out loud. In that opening, you see they bring you up to speed with the current conflict. So Wing Commander 4 takes place after several years after Wing Commander 3, and Wing Commander 3 was the end of the Kilrathi saga arc. So the Kilrathi are defeated. They're not as much of a threat as they used to be. Not anywhere close to being the same threat that they used to be. And the idea in Wing Commander 4 is, hey, you know what? We've got this freedom after many decades of fighting the Kilrathi. Now there's going to be some infighting amongst Confed and the border worlds. Now the border worlds are just what they sound like. They are the worlds. They are the worlds, a union of worlds out on the fringes of human settlements. And they were instrumental in keeping the Kilrathi at bay for many, many decades, because obviously they were the front lines. And prior to that, they were ostracized. There was rumblings that there was some kind of war at some point, or some kind of, maybe not a war, but a mutual, I guess, campfire pissing contest at some point prior to the events of the Wing Commander series. The Wing Commander movie tried to touch on it a little bit, where they were considered sort of pilgrims, the Border Worlders were, and they sort of went a little bit insane because they'd been out in the far reaches of the galaxy and sort of lost their humanity a little bit. But that's kind of propaganda, because that's kind of how Confed viewed them, but that wasn't really how the Border Worlders viewed themselves. They kind of viewed themselves as being frontiersmen, not really wanting the order, so to speak, of Confed, or not necessarily agreeing with a government that was many millions of light years away and not really in touch with their day-to-day plights. And so in Wing Commander 4, that it opens up with the intro where you see a medical transport carrying civilian refugees from a sort of an internal fight amongst the Border Worlds. So the Border Worlds Union themselves started to suffer from a civil war, a little uprising, and there were some refugees being transported via medical ship, and the medical ship comes under attack and is destroyed by some new crazy weapon, and then there's some uber awesome pilot who launched that weapon, and so on and so forth. And then it cuts to the Senate floor, and that's where the similarities between Wing Commander 4 and this video that was just released of Squadron 42 start to really mesh together. You see on the Senate floor, you see a bunch of senators yelling and screaming at each other, and then Admiral Tolwyn gets to address the assembly, and he does, and he says, look, you know, there's some stuff going on in the Border World. It's not too kosher. We're going to go and investigate for next 2 weeks and figure out what's going on, and then we'll report back to you as to whether or not we need to send the troops in and quash this semi-Uber rebellion, or take over the Border Worlds and make them part of Confed, so on and so forth. And in Squadron 42 video, it's what was he? Was he an admiral? I guess he was an admiral. I forget the name of the guy, Admiral something. It's mentioned in the video, and it's played by, you can clearly see the voice actor is Gary Oldman. You can see his face in there. They sort of digitize his face and all the, you know, performance acting and all that stuff. Performance capture, as the word I wanted to say there. And he's basically laying it out for what looked like a bunch of senators, laying it out and saying, look, we've been fighting the Vandal for 2 centuries, and we've been calling them skirmishes, we've been calling them anything, you know, we've been calling them paper airplane throwing, crap slinging, scuffles. But the reality of the situation is we've lost a few colonies, and this is an all-out war now. And he's basically laying it out for them, saying, look, this is what's going to happen. So I'm very excited about that. And then, of course, after that, it cuts away to showing you the names of the actors who are going to be playing parts in it. And there's a couple that stand out, namely Mark Hamill and John Rhys-Davies, who both played in Wing Commander 3 and 4. And also Mark Hamill played in Wing Commander 5, Prophecy, which is a game I still haven't really played. I never really had the desire to play that particular game because I don't know. They lost a step after, they tried to introduce a new big bad, and I don't know. It just wasn't resonating with me as much as the previous big bad was. So I'd never actually. I own it, but I've never actually really sat down and played it too much. And there's a new main character and all that stuff. So it was a bit of a hard sell for me. But maybe someday I'll learn to embrace it. Who knows? So, and then of course they also have another big name that I recognized on there was Andy Serkis. He's no stranger to the performance capture technology and stuff like that. He's played Gollum in The Lord of the Rings, and I believe he played a ape in one of the Planet of the Apes movies, remakes. It wasn't even called, I don't even think it was called Planet of the Apes. I think it was called something else, but it was the same premise as that, and several other things all along the way. I don't want to water his career down to like 2 things. He's done a hell of a lot around the place, so very cool to see some of those names. And the rest of the names I didn't really recognize off the top of my head. I'm sure if I looked them up on IMDb, I'd probably recognize some of the things that they've worked on, but I don't recognize them by name. So that's very cool. So I have basically explained the video to you, but you should probably go watch it yourself anyway, because it is pretty cool. Also, there are some other videos on that site that show some of the behind the scenes and see them. You can see them doing their performance capture and all that stuff. Pretty cool stuff. Pretty cool stuff all around there, my friends. So, keeping up with the sci-fi / cyberpunk stuff, theme going on here. CD Projekt Red has has talked a little bit about their next game in their pipeline, since The Witcher 3 is kind of done. Kinda. I mean, there's still some DLC that they're working on. But the next game in their pipeline that they announced a long time ago and that they don't plan on making any real talks about until at least 2017 is called Cyberpunk 2077. And of course, you had me at Cyberpunk. That is my jam. So apparently it's, according to some interviews, it's going to be much bigger than The Witcher. It's probably going to be the biggest thing that CD Projekt Red has ever done, undertaken, which has got me excited, because if it's like, if they took The Witcher 3 and all the various little story threads and side quests and made them as fleshed out in a sci-fi cyberpunk setting, my mind will be blown, because I could really use some of that, like having just the same level of detail as far as the stories and all that stuff in that kind of a setting. I mean, because I love The Witcher 3 as it is, and I can only imagine how much more I'll love like Cyberpunk 2077 if they manage to capture that same depth of and breadth of stuff that they have in The Witcher 3. That would be really cool. But again, they're not spilling any beans until at least 2017 on that, is what they're saying. So got precious little tidbits here and there. But I'll link you to those precious little tidbits on Rock Paper Shotgun, just so you can take a look at it for yourself. And I believe they had, I don't know if they linked to some kind of video or not, but there might be an embedded link on there that you can take a look at. So some Kickstarter things here, some updates and news that are mixed news here. I'll link it to Kotaku that talks about a Kickstarter game by the name of Midora. It was successfully kickstarted back in 2014. I think it got to like $73,000 in some sense out, and it was, they're looking for 60 grand initially, so they blew by their initial hopes, initial goal. But apparently, and the game itself is like a Legend of Zelda-esque game. Basically, it's more like a Link to the Past. It looks a lot like A Link to the Past, the art style and the movement, and it's that action sort of top-down RPG thing going on. Even a little bit of maybe a Secret of Mana in there. But unfortunately, they just released an update to their backers saying that they've run out of money. They backed, they had 73 grand that they made, and they have blown through all of it and have not delivered yet their final build of the game, a final release version of it. The update said basically they're looking for a publisher to help them out, someone to just give them that extra money that they needed. They said they knew going in that they were going to need at least $120,000 to $200,000, if not more, to do what they wanted to do, but instead they just tried to do what they could with $73,000, and that was not so successful. They didn't get very far with it, and they said now they need at least another $120,000 to $200,000 to complete what they've worked on. So thus lies the dangers and the due diligence that you need to do when you look at a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo project. You always have to look to see, have these people done things in the past? Have they actually made video games before? Is this their first endeavor? Many other things like that. It also highlights that a lot of the Kickstarters that we see out there are simply lowballing their campaigns just to get some kind of money. That's been a thing that's going on a lot. I mean, games generally cost a lot more than 60 grand, and you see a lot of Kickstarters out there for 20 grand, 30 grand, 50 grand. And a lot of times, I would say, those Kickstarters are there to drum up investor support. Because if you can go to an investor and say, or an angel investor or whatever, and say, hey, I did a successful Kickstarter campaign, I raised this amount of money, I need you to foot the bill for the rest. A lot of times those investors need that little, I don't know, pat on the back, little pat on the head to let them know that yes, this is something that people are interested in, and then they'll actually put up the rest of the money for it. And then you get, the independent operators who aren't intending on doing that to either almost have something completed or are really wildly underestimating the amount of money that they actually need for things. So yeah, it's always a buyer beware situation. You always have to be very careful as to what you're doing, and know that the money that you're putting down is potentially you're never going to get any return on that investment. So it's sad. Hopefully they find the backers that they want. It looks like a really cool game. It's one that I never saw. I never picked up on. So it's hopefully they had something like 3,300 backers as well. A little bit over 3,350 something backers. So that's a big blow and a big disappointment. They're not the first. They won't be the last. But hopefully every one of those backers will be able to get something for their investment and their time and their hopes at the end of the day. In addition to that, talk about Double Fine. Double Fine pulled a double wool, a double cross, if you will, against several thousands of backers for their game called Spacebase DF-9, their early access game that they put on Steam, by basically ditching it. They worked on it for quite some time. They ran out of money to work on it, and they released it out to the world and said, okay, this is no longer in early access, good luck, and never actually finished the game. But they released everything out there. I believe they released all the source code even to it and just said, here you go. And they just dumped it out there and said, we're done. Wash our hands of it. So that didn't win them any real brownie points amongst gamers. I know quite a few who were, while I was looking through the forums of the Spatials, a game that I enjoyed a lot, you could see quite a few people who went over and started playing the Spatials because was a lot better. It was more complete and fleshed out, and space station management game that they couldn't get out of Spacebase DF-9 because it was just an empty shell almost of what it needed to be. But I have some good news in regards to that. I'll link you to Kotaku again, which is they're 2-0 this this week in having some articles that are actually worth clicking through to. Some fans have continued to work on Spacebase DF-9 based on what was out there, and have released an additional. They're working on it and have released a mod for it that actually adds more stuff to the game. That they're continuing to support it, even though Double Fine no longer does. So it's what is it here? Derelict Games Restoration Team is what they call themselves, and they're updating the canceled project, and it's apparently pretty good. Apparently pretty good. I've never actually I thought of getting into the early access of Spacebase DF-9, and then I never did. And so I don't actually have any copy of that to know what it's like or what it's not like. I'm just going on based on what I've read and what I've seen in the reviews and everything else. But it's apparently this is if you own the game, you should go take a look. I'll link you to the Kotaku article that has a link to their stuff here. A link to their mod. I don't know what you would call it. What do you call this? Do you call this a mod, or do you call this a total conversion? I'm not even sure. I'm not even sure what to call. Like, what happens when somebody abandons a title and the fans take it over and continue working on it? Like, it's one thing to have a title that was completely finished, released, I should say, released in a finished state, or at least somewhat finished state, and then have fans many years later who still like to play it, modding it and updating it so that it's available for modern systems. I mean, that's one thing. Those are mods, but does it qualify as a mod if the game was never finished in the first place? I don't know. I mean, technically you're modifying it, so it is a mod, but I'm not sure what to call it. I guess I just have to call it a fan-made project. A fan-made project to continue working on Spacebase DF-9. So if you are the few that own that game, you have something to look forward to now, maybe, and maybe you can go back into it and see what they're doing and support them by telling more people about it, I suppose. So that is a thing. I just wanted to point that out. I happened to pull that out of my news feeds and see that going on, and I thought that would be an interesting thing to touch upon. October 20th. October 20th is shaping up to be a very, very busy day as far as games are concerned. Apparently, at least in my life anyway. The finale of Tales from the Borderlands has been announced for coming out on the PC on the 20th, and then Xbox and other things on the 21st. Also, the finale of Life is Strange is coming out then, which is a game I have not played because I think it's a PS4 exclusive. I think. I'm not entirely sure, but I have not played that game at all. But that is, I've been watching Let's Plays of it, and I'm actually waiting for that to come out so that I can watch other people play it, since I won't be playing it anytime soon. And also, a game that I have been anticipating for freaking ever is coming out October the 20th, I believe. Rebel Galaxy. I believe it's coming out on the 20th. I am waiting for this game. I've been waiting for this game for forever, and you can't pre-order it or anything yet. It's still, I have to wait until it actually comes out to actually order it, to buy it. But it'll be out on Steam, and it's looking like a Starpoint Gemini-esque game where you are commanding a starship and you can upgrade it and all that stuff. It's got RPG mechanics. You pick up missions, and it's got sort of an old Western feel to it, like a Firefly-esque feel to it, where it just you're sort of a rebel without a cause, or maybe with a cause, and you're just kind of eking your own living out, a meager living out in the fringes of society, and trying to pull a fast one on everybody if you can, and basically pissing off aliens along the way. And from what I understand, I haven't looked at any real footage of it. I mean, a lot of YouTubers have gotten access to it. A lot of press and media have gotten access to it. But I've purposely not looked at anything too much, because I want to experience it for myself. Not that I care about spoilers. There's not going to be any spoilers, obviously. It's like a sandbox game. But I want to have an untainted, I guess, untainted experience of it. I mean, from what I'm hearing in on the Twitter and stuff like that, it's just a fantastic game. Everybody's praising the hell out of it, so that's got me even more excited for when I can finally give them my money. So I'm just anticipating that. But I mean, October 20th for some reason is like the day of tons of stuff that I've been tracking for a while, just all coming out at once. And I still believe I've only written 3 things down here: the Tales from the Borderlands, Life is Strange, and Rebel Galaxy. But I swear that there's a few others that are coming out probably on the 20th as well that I have lost in my brain somewhere. I know that on the 13th we're going to get Minecraft Story Mode, the first episode of that. This is going to be like the Telltale Games month here, because we're going to get that. And I believe that they're going to release the final episode of Game of Thrones this month sometime, although they haven't actually announced it yet. But it sounds like the rumblings are on the wire that they might be doing that too. So they're going to have like a really freaking big month here of releases and stuff. So all those I am looking forward to. So there's going to be a resurgence of Telltale Games on my channel for a little bit this month. But like I said, they're 4 episodes and done usually. So it's not a big deal. But I'm enjoying them so much that I need them. I need them in my life. And Rebel Galaxy, when that comes out later this month, I will be playing that. I don't know how often I'll be playing it. I just know that I will be playing it. It really depends on, I tend to sit down with things for 10 to 15 minutes, maybe a half an hour even, before I record anything, just to get a feel for it and see what it would be best as. Like, is there a lot of downtime? If so, then probably best as a live stream. Is there a lot of story to it? If so, then probably best as a YouTube video series. Maybe a combination of both. Don't know yet, until I get my hands on it, my friends. But it will be one or the other, or both. So we'll see when time comes for that. In addition to that, like I said, Deus Ex Invisible War will be winding down on Sunday, or right after this, honestly. I originally on my schedule had planned to start recording Victor Vran, which is a action RPG game. But I got blindsided, my friends. I got blindsided. I heard rumblings that there was a new Transformers game coming out called Transformers Devastation, and apparently it is out. And I took a look at some of the videos of it, and it's the Generation 1 Transformers, which is the generation that I grew up with. So I immediately went, oh, okay, maybe I want to play this instead. And so I purchased it yesterday, and I may just do that. I may play that instead of Victor Vran, just because it came out, and it has been a long time since I've played any or even thought about the Transformers. Honestly, I followed them from the 80s into the early 90s, which I think encompasses all of Generation 1. And then there's another generation that I haven't dug into at all, so I have no idea what that involves. I'm lucky enough to know that there's actually 2 generations. I always thought there was only the one series, but apparently there's 2 different iterations of it. The one that I know is, the original Cars, Optimus Prime and all that stuff. Autobots. And then I stopped watching around Beast Wars. So right after Beast Wars ended is right around when I stopped watching the Transformers and stuff, or lost track of them, I should say. Not necessarily stopped watching them, but that was those were the Dinobots. So I know some things here and there. I know, the Decepticons. I know the backhoe things. What are they? Constructicons, and the Insecticons, and then the Dinobots, and I forget I forget what the Decepticons were in Dino form. I forget. They had some other name, and I don't remember. I don't remember what it was. But it has been basically at least 15 years since I've had my brain in Transformers at all. So I'm probably not going to remember any of the names. I mean, obviously I remember Optimus Prime, and I remember what was the Beetle? His name just his name just escaped me. The Yellow Beetle. I didn't watch any of the movies either. I watched bits and pieces of them, but I didn't watch them at all through. So I remember him, except his name. His name just escaped me. And then obviously there's Starscream, and then there's Megatron, Grimlock, and Soundwave, and good Lord, what was his name? What was the Beetle's name? The Yellow Beetle. Oh, that's gonna kill me. I'm gonna be Googling that after we're done here, and feel free to yell at me in the comments for being an old man and not remembering things. This is part of my childhood, and I can't even remember it. This is terrible. And now I'm going to go play Transformers Devastation and just get yelled at. Damn it, memory! How can you not remember these things? I'm sorry. Oh, but I was a Transformers. I wasn't. To be honest, I had Optimus Prime Transformer. I was into the Transformers, but I never really, even as a kid, I wasn't that into them. Like, I probably knew their names at one point in time, but I wasn't, rabbit into them. I liked them and I enjoyed them, but they were more of it was one of those things that I used to, I don't know how many people used to do this as kids, but you know how you come home from school and you're doing your homework, and you just turn the TV on, even though you've got your back to it. You're not watching the TV, you just have it on because you need some sound in the room with you just to help you focus. That was me, and that was Transformers usually for me, was that. Although a lot of times the Transformers was on in the morning, so I'd see it like before going to school a little bit, like bits and pieces of it, but not the whole thing, not the whole episode, because rushing and all that stuff. So that's kind of how that formulated in my brain. So I know a few things here and there, but I wasn't super into it. Whereas, say for instance, like G.I. Joe, and G.I. Joe was kind of the same way too. That was a lot of times I saw that in the mornings, but then sometimes it was in the afternoon. I know a little bit more about that. I followed that a little bit closer, but not terribly so. I was more of a, like, when the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles would come on, I would drop everything and watch them, that kind of thing. And Exo Squad was another one that I really liked, which I still have to buy the DVDs for that. I gotta see if they're still out there, because I think they had released them at some point. But yeah, that's my, I'm gonna be that guy who plays a Transformers game and kind of geeks out, but also at the same time gets all the names wrong and doesn't know anything that's going on. Because I've been out of practice for so long. But I feel like that would be a nice little nostalgia trip for me. It's like, I guess I'm in a sort of nostalgic mood now, which is why I keep looking at some older games I want to play, like Star Trek not Bridge Commander, Birth of the Federation, and Deus Ex, and the original Deus Ex. I'm still waiting for Deus Ex Revision to get done and all that stuff. And I guess because I'm in a nostalgic mood, but I also want to play new games too. So it's like, it's kind of like the best of both worlds. It solves it quenches my nostalgia thirst, and also is a brand new game. So like, there's the balance in the force has occurred between all those things. So that's kind of the way I'm approaching it and looking at it. And I think that'll be kind of cool. We'll see. I've seen I've seen like the first 10 minutes of it in video form. So I know it's a fighting game. Well, kind of a fighting game, kind of. It's more like it's a fighting game in the same realm that Streets of Rage is a fighting game kind of thing. So I'm interested in, I was really interested in seeing when it was all like, when I saw Optimus Prime and stuff in there, I was like, oh, hey, they're doing like the old school stuff, the stuff that I remember, instead of like the newfangled, I don't know what is the new generation called? Is it like Generation X or something? What is that? For Transformers, do they call it Gen X or Generation 2 or what? I have no idea what they call it, but I don't even know what it entails. Is there an Optimus in that one? I have no idea. But that's me rambling on about that. But that's probably what will start happening come Monday, hopefully, because I have nothing else to go up on Monday. And I have lost an entire day here due to birthday parties and stuff, so hopefully I can record some of that tomorrow, which is normally my rendering day. We'll see. We shall see. But I can see from the clock on the wall here that I am nearly at an hour, and I don't have much else on my list. I do have one more thing on my list here, and that is Star Wars Battlefront. I'll link you to Destructoid article on it, talking about it a little bit. It's the beta for that is out right now. People are playing it. The initial things that I'm hearing about, I haven't played it myself, and I don't think I will either. But the initial feedback I'm hearing on it is that people are pretty, meh about it. It's there. It's does a thing, but it's not really particularly blowing anybody's skirt up or socks off or whatever, piece of article of clothing you wish to insert into there. So that's kind of, I don't want to say I told you so, but that's kind of the impression that I was getting about it, was that I realized that all the other Star Wars Battlefront games were multiplayer games, but I don't know. I feel like I feel like we need a good single player campaign Star Wars game in our life, not a multiplayer game. But the other part of my brain is looking at this like, well, they're trying to tie into the movie, and they can't do a single player one yet because it might spoil the movie, right? Because of the whole extended universe thing. Plus, they have this hard deadline, which means they're going to throw whatever they can out the door, whether it's broken or not, and just to have it tie in with the movie and make sure that Disney is happy and all that stuff, because they at this point it's beyond EA's purview, right? It's like, even though they're the ones working on it, EA and DICE are working on it, they probably have a ton of pressure from Disney to get it out in coordination with the movie and all that stuff. So you can bet your ass it's going to go out in whatever form it is in, whether it's broken or not, probably. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not big on the multiplayer stuff anyway, so having a multiplayer only game kind of always is like, meh, here and there, take it or leave it for me. Especially something like that, especially a first person shooter, because that tends to attract a lot of the lowest common denominator players out there, the toxic ones. It's almost like a MOBA in that respect. It just brings all the toxic players out of the woodwork. That gives them some more things to keep them off the streets, that kind of thing. So that's the rumblings I've heard, is that it's kind of, it does what it does, but it doesn't do anything particularly interesting or well. So yeah, hopefully they iron out whatever it is that they're trying to iron out there. But I'm honestly looking forward to if they ever come out with a single player campaign thing that I can latch onto as far as Star Wars is concerned, because I played through Republic Commando and that was a really good game. And that's the last one that I know of that was actually pretty good. I believe that there was some sort of Starfighter game where you were in an X-Wing or something like that, but I can never remember. I can never find that game. Like it was a Star Wars game. I think it was like, it's not Rogue Squadron, because that's an older game, but it kind of did the same thing. Like you were in Red Squadron, sort of, and it was a behind the third person view, kind of behind your ship, and you would fly around, and you were in an X-Wing. And I remember playing a little bit of it on, I think, the original Xbox. I think my brother had rented it at some point, and this is years ago. And I can never remember what the name of it actually was. And it's I've been looking for it ever since. Like I don't know if it was ever released on PC or what, but I've been just kind of trying to track that down, because the little bit that we played of it, I really enjoyed. I don't remember what the name of it was. And it was only like a 2-day rental or something, so I didn't play that much of it. So I hopefully one of these days I'll learn what that is. I have a bunch of Star Wars games that I bought on Steam in a pack, but it doesn't look like it's any of those. So I don't know. I don't know if I can find it or not. My quest continues for that. But anyway, I'm in that space shooter mode anyway, as it is now. Squadron 42 has put me back into that mode again. Where I need some more space shooters in my life. But anywho, I think I have rambled on quite long enough for one episode, and I actually made it through almost an entire episode here without any problems, and starting to actually sweat. So I'm fighting off whatever it is that I actually have. So that's good. But anywho, thanks so much for watching, everybody, and I will see you guys next Sunday.